Hello, my name is Tucker and welcome back to the Blood Rush Fellows channel. Today we are here to talk about Jarl Armory deck. So we officially know the 60 card Armory deck that you will buy on the store shelves. This is the list of cards that you are buying. So let's dive in first the broad strokes and then look a bit more nuanced and see some of the choices made here. So the first thing that I notice is that they have an 18-0-42 cost curve in this 60 card list. A lot of people, myself included, have been testing Jarl with 33 to 35 blues, and that has felt decent. I personally have run into some cost curve issues where I get all red hands at really inopportune times. So it's interesting for LSS to say, no, try a higher blue count. Try going 40 or even 42. For Oldhim and Bravo, this was the standard. Hitting 38 to 42 is really the sweet spot. But ever since heavy hitters with Betsy and Victor, 33 to 35 blues has been more the standard for Guardian. So it's really interesting that they want to push us back to a cost curve of 42 blues. But I get it when we're trying to send big attacks like Glacial Footsteps and the like, or play 3-card plays like Frozen to Death. So that is the first big nuance here, is they are a very blue-heavy Jarl deck by default. You start with Steelbraid Buckler. This is a substitute for Stalagmite. They very clearly want you to upgrade to Stalagmite if you're going to play him competitively. There is notably a reprint of Expose the Elements in this set too, so you are trying to snipe equipment both with the new Frozen to Death and Expose the Elements. As a whole, the deck looks pretty awesome. Statistically, there is 24 Ice and 15 Earth, so definitely more Ice heavy than Earth heavy, as a lot of us have been thinking. He has all of the new cards, of course, and a lot of old ones. Some of them are great, some of them are terrible, so let's dive in at the card by card. First of all, his equipment I've discussed in some other videos. I will leave a card to those at the end of this video to check out. But All in Ice Cap, I feel like, is the strongest of his Majestic equipment. It is very strong in that you can block with Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain as it is an Ice card and still trigger All in Ice Cap. So you sort of have this extra Stalagmite equipment in the head slot as well. You can try Coronet Peak or other things over this, but I do think this is a very strong starting equipment. The chest piece, I think, is the weakest of the Majestic equipment, personally. It's sort of like a budget Tectonic Plating, and it can be very good. Having an on-demand Frostbite an on-demand Seismic Surge can be very potent. Starstruck, with its Unity effect, has been great for this in the past for Bravo. But I do think that there are just better options like Tunic and Tech Plating in the chest piece than this Tectonic Crust. His arm piece is very good. I can almost never see running the other two over this. Even lists that won't run Mangle, and you'll just end up taking that out in favor of other builds. I think you'll probably still want either an Earth card to get into Graveyard to decompose, or an Ice card to block with All in Ice Cap, or something that's more consistent than the other options. And then, of course, to round it out, we have the Earth legs. They're okay. They're often just a Blade Break 2 with extra steps, but I think they're good for getting an Earth card into the graveyard immediately and on demand, so that then when you draw cards like Felling and Plow Under, you can decompose. Of course, his hammer is a bit controversial. It's very weak early game. You end up not really swinging this weapon at all for 2/3 of the game, but then late game you have a really big beat stick to close out the game with. So 6 cost is very steep. There's a lot of discussion currently about Titan's Fist or Sledge of Anvilheim over this card, but it is at least potentially very good, and it is what comes in the Armory deck. Followed by a shield that says Temper 2. So this says you can block 2 and then block 1, and it is gone. So you start off with a pretty nice fridge of blocking 3, 6, 7, 10 already, 11, 12. So it starts to add up. Into your deck, though, we have some red threats here. So first of all, Buckling Blow is going to go exactly for the game plan that you're looking for, trying to get -1 counters on equipment. I don't know if this will go into final builds, because you'll play other bigger threats that will try and coerce the equipment block anyway, but it is just a really big attack. 4 for 8 is a good rate for Guardian, where you can say, look, either give me your equipment now, or I'm going to get it regardless. Earth Form is also very good for blocking. 3 for 7, another fantastic rate. As a 2-block, it's a little more underwhelming, but it is still a very good rate. Of course, you'd love to see a good Oldhim quote on it. Then we see a 2 for 6 Ice card on hit Frostbite. Notably, if they already have an open equipment slot when you play Icy Encounter, you will give them a Frostbite. Then when this hits, you'll give them a second Frostbite. So it's very good at slowing them down as just a nice 2 for 6. Mangle, of course, his main special card. You have things like the Gauntlets of the Boreal Domain to buff Mangle. You have cards like Unforgetting, Unforgiving to search Mangle, and so on. So this is a very core card to the hero. It's like the Golden Sun or the Crippling Crush or the Okanold for Jarl. He also has Snow Under, one of my personal favorite cards from Tales of Aria. This is a 3 for 7 that when you Ice Fuse, gives the opponent a Frostbite on hit. So it's a nice 7 breakpoint that also threatens Disruption. It's a 3 for 7 block 3, so you love the rate. It gets discounted by seismic surges. There's nothing not to love about this card. And lastly, for the reds, we have Unforgetting, Unforgiving. This is a block 4, and if the opponent already has a -1 counter, you can search your deck for a Mangle and banish it to play next turn. It's a very good tutor. It can be a bit inconsistent, but when you do get the effect of this to resolve, man, is it impactful. And if it doesn't resolve, it's still a block 4 that gets around things like Overpower. Moving on to Amulet of Ice, this is very good for fused cards such as Snow Under, such as Oakenol that I'm sure you'll try, such as Exposed to the Elements. Amulet of Ice can really pack a punch on these turns where you're fusing, and otherwise might be underrate. Autumn's Touch is going to be your default blue block 3 Earth card. It's very potent for you just in that regard, and to up your Earth count, get Earth online for Decompose additions that you might fluff out the deck with. Channel Mount Eisen is one of his new cards that is trying to close out the game. It's very good late game. It's a blue ice block 3 early game. But I've had plenty of situations where you play this out because the opponent's at 1, 2, 3 life, and you're trying to just say, please die, let me finish this game out so we can go get a snack or something. Sometimes they will play around it. For example, Zen and other Mystic heroes are great at getting the Frostbites and then pitching into a Transcend card or anything like that before it comes back to their turn and getting rid of the Frostbites, therefore taking no damage. So there are ways to play around it, but it is a really good card to pitch back into your deck and then cycle 2, play it out, give them a Frostbite, and try and close out the game. Especially pairs well with Summit, because then when you're trying to keep it around for a second turn and give them a Frostbite, it's really hard to play an Ice card and pitch 2 more Ice cards. It's a 3-card play at least. But then if you just pitch 2 Ice cards into Summit, you're threatening the Frostbite, threatening the life loss, and still getting 2 Ice cards in pitch. Crumble to Eternity is the best card in this deck. It is absolutely stellar. This card is amazing, and you're never going to not run it in Jarl. It puts a -1 counter on equipment, so that gets all of your game plan online. That gets you all to the races as you're trying to find ways to break your opponent's equipment. And then it also gives Dominate, which pairs very well with things like Mangle, with Spinal Crush, with CNC. Even with your Hammer for 6, this Dominate can be very good. It is, of course, a dual element block 3, so we love to see those. It works with the Rootbound Trunks. It works with everything. This card is amazing. Moving on to Emerging Avalanche, this is probably one of the weakest cards in the deck. Guardian has always really struggled with these aura cards, so they made one with Go Again at the cost of being a 2 cost. So it's a very tough cost curve to work into your turns. Sometimes you'll have a full grip where you can pay into this, Ice Fuse, with the 1 floating, pitch another blue to like play a 4 cost, but this is a 5-card play, and that's why this card is often kind of awkward. It is nonetheless a way to Ice Fuse and just give an unconditional Frostbite while also buffing things. And even a +1 buff shouldn't be scoffed at because you can take things like CNC and turn a 6 into a 7, which is a huge breakpoint difference. Moving on, we have Exposed to the Elements. This is an existing card for popping equipment. Generally, you want to double fuse this on the turn it's played. It's not very often that they'll already have -1 counters and you just Ice Fuse it. It's not very often that you're just going to Earth Fuse it and give them a -1 and move on. You typically are trying to do this, resolve first the Earth effect to put a -1 counter, and then the Ice effect to pop the equipment. Often played best when you wait for your opponent to be almost done with their turn, and they clearly don't have any more cards left in hand to pay this to. So often as Ultim, I would pair this with Ice React. Now you just need to be a bit more patient with the timing that you play it out. Frozen to Death is another amazing card. This pairs so well with Crumble to Eternity and is the core of your deck. So you're trying to crumble, put a -1 on their biggest, baddest equipment like Traverse to the Universe or Storm Striders or Tunic, and then you play this as a follow-up to pop that equipment. When you play it, if it's not the first equipment being popped, then you give them a Frostbite from Jarl, pop that equipment that you're targeting, then give them a second Frostbite from this effect resolve. So it can be very detrimental and really give you a swing, even though it's a 3-card play that is just play an action and pass and not really threatening any damage. It can be so impactful to get your hero online. Glacial Footsteps is a classic. This is a card that I played at Tales of Aria pre-release and made me first fall in love with Oldhim. It is awesome. It is basically our Macho Grande before Macho Grande was a card. This is a 6 for 8 that you can dominate. There's 6 for 10 red that you can dominate. It's really smooth because sometimes you just don't even care about the dominate and you play 6 for 8 because that's a good rate and it's big damage. Glacial Footsteps is a fantastic card. Moving on to Polar Blast, we have Polar Blast, which is similar to Cold Snap. Both cards, when played from Arsenal, will let you draw as a 1-cost leader. This one says when you play it, your opponent may pay 1, otherwise you get Dominate. So this will help with Buckling Blow, this will help with Icy Encounter, with Mangle, with Snow Under. All of your big red attacks you'll notice have on Crush, on Hit, on Hit, on Crush, on Hit. This is important when paired with Dominate to really force through your disruption. Sigil of Earth is here to round out the Earth statistics. It is okay. I don't think it will really come out. This is probably going to be one of the first cards that you cut, but it is nonetheless a blue Earth card to round out your Earth numbers. Make sure that you're hitting your Earth fuse as much as possible, block with Tectonic Crest and things like that. Shrink the Sequoia is similar to Emerging Avalanche. They are both 2-cost auras with Go Again, 2-cost aura with Go Again. This one is the Earth Fuse and instead makes a Seismic Surge. Again, I think the card is okay, but probably going to be on the chopping block, same as Strong Yield, another blue Earth card. This is just a 1-cost that gives you +1 next turn. It's more of a Florian card, really, but you can tell that they want to push the Earth count in this list. And lastly, we have the Winter's Duo. These cards are Immaculate. You're often going to want to play these cards. Winter's Bite, even though it's a 2-block, is still so powerful to strip a card from your opponent's hand. To give them a Frostbite and strip that card, man, that is crazy impactful. Sometimes you will have 2 of these in a hand that doesn't really do much, and you can really get your opponent by playing one of these, giving them a Frostbite, and they'll pitch a red card, and then you play another one and strip another card from their hand, and it can just be really detrimental. It feels bad for the opponent, so it feels great to play against them. And lastly, you just have a blue block 3 ice card, Winter's Grasp. This is a staple just because of the bottom right corner, block 3. You really typically want to have as many of these as possible, and blocking is very good for Guardian because you're not great at ramming the opponent every turn on demand, keeping momentum. Guardian is all about being this ebb and flow of momentum, being okay on the back foot, and then concocting a plan to snap back around and have the tempo. So because of that, you often need to block more. You often need more blues for the consistency. Let's look at the block statistics here. So they're on 18 blues and 6 no blocks, or 18 2 blocks and 6 no blocks. The deck is pretty awesome as it is. They have articles for improvement, so let's look at that now. First of all, please check out Flesh and Blood's own video, Armory Deck Jarl versus Armory Deck-IO. That's what just came out very recently. That is where I'm finding this, and you can see the URL here, fabtcg.com/QR/AD-Jarl, so please check that out. That link will lead you to here, where you can see a bit about the deck, the hero, the weapon, Mangle, some of the awesome insights, and this video itself. It shows you some more previews of what you can expect in the deck that we just talked through, some of the equipment. And then lastly, they have some recommended upgrades, and I stand by all of these. Pulse of Eisenloft, one of, if not maybe my favorite card. It is the one single Earth Ice card before this deck existed. In the same way that Crumble to Eternity is so good for your deck, so is Pulse of Eisenloft. Likewise, Stalagmite, man, they really want you to run Stalagmite in Jarl. They gave you a Temper 2 shield. This is a Temper 2 shield that also gives defensive Frostbites. It is a must-have if you are not on a specific like sledge build or something like that that doesn't use an offhand. We could also see Rampart of the Ram's Head. That's a bit more niche and will depend on meta more often, but Stalagmite will really be the core card of Jarl, and if you're going to buy one money piece to upgrade your deck, I would recommend Stalagmite being the first thing that you look at. And lastly, Coronet Peak is another good helmet. So we have the Blade Break one that gives a defensive Frostbite. This is very good because it can be another out when your weapon is so expensive. As the text here says, Summit is expensive. It's a 6-cost. Sometimes you really just want to pitch one little blue card that doesn't do much and have a turn, and that's what Coronet Peak allows you. It's another option to utilize your cards whenever you're on the back foot. That is mostly it for here. You can see the deck list officially linked here. I just imported it into Fabry for this visual. Again, thank you to Philip and Fabry for everything that y'all do. This is awesome. So yeah, this is the Armory deck. Thank you for going through it with me. It's pretty awesome. Keep eyes tuned for the Bloodrush Fellows channel, where I'm going to have more gameplay on Jarl, more deck techs, ways to upgrade the deck, suggestions for different builds, all that type of stuff. If there's any content related to Jarl that you'd like to see, or any questions about the hero or the deck, please leave them in the comments down below. I'm happy to answer them. I'll check them pretty religiously and answer anything I see. Big shout out to Iron Lion Collectibles, our store sponsor here in Colorado Springs, and thank you for checking it out. See you in the next one.